No one. Absolutely no one. Not a single soul. Asics. Let's bring back the Gel-Kinsei. What's good everyone, YouTube? It's me again, back with another video, and switching it back to everyone's favorite alternative brand, Asics. We're actually talking about an interesting collaboration that Asics has put out on one of their old running silhouettes. So, pretty recently, Asics decided to bring back the Gel-Kinsei. This was an old running shoe from, I think, 2007. And, pretty soon after bringing out the original silhouette, they've brought out this special collaboration with Affix Works. And Affix Works apparently is this brand, radio station turned into fashion brand. I won't pretend that I know much about it. I do know Kiko Kostatinov is responsible for the founding of this particular company, which I think probably attributes to why this collaboration even happened, because Kiko and Asics have been in bed for quite a while now. But I don't really care much for the clothing that Affix Works has been putting out, but this particular shoe, while they didn't change all that much, I actually think the Gel-Kinsei is a pretty interesting running model, and the fact that they've brought out this pretty unique colorway, I was actually quite drawn to it, so that's why I ended up buying it. We have it here on the channel today. So, without further ado, today we are talking about the Affix Asics Gel-Kinsei OG in the brownstone and kelp colorway. I think I got the colorway right. So yeah, with the intro out of the way, let's get into the box. So I'm not someone who actually owned an original Gel-Kinsei, so I can't actually say if this is actually the original box or not. But it seems to be this retro style Asics running box. So we've got Asics written on the top, we've got this big gel branding on the side, as well as these stripes. And these stripes sort of lead into one of Asics' like older logos, or logos that they don't seem to use that often. And if we flip open the box, it's pretty standard. We've got this like standard packing paper, and the shoes were stuffed with standard paper as well. So nothing in particular, no extra laces, but to be honest, you can't do extra laces. You'll find out why in a sec. And if we move to the label, it reads Gel-Kinsei OG. And what's really interesting is actually there is nothing on the box that would suggest that this is a collaboration. But hey, there you go. So, the retail price on these, at least in Australia, these shoes will retail for a price of 290 Australian dollars. With a cheeky 10% off, I managed to pick these up for 261 Australian dollars. I'll put the conversion here. And to be fair, I probably could have waited till they went a bit cheaper. It's not exactly a really hot commodity at this point in time. But I'm fairly happy to pay this price because all things considered, when you look at like other Gel-Kinseis retailing at regular 280 prices, as well as other Kiko Kostatinov collaborations retail for a whopping $400, 260 is not too bad, just trying to justify it in my own head. So, with the box out of the way, let's get into the shoes. And here we are. Ooh, my tongue just flopped down. The Asics and Affix Gel-Kinsei OG in the brownstone and kelp colorway. So the most standout feature to me, at least on this particular shoe, is actually the colorway itself. We've got this sort of yellow or kelp color that dominates most of the upper. And then in between that, as like the base layer, instead of like a black, it's actually a very subtle like brownstone colorway. And then alongside all these colors, we've actually got very small accents of red found on the tongue, as well as like on part of the outsole. And I think this colorway, while it's a bit odd, it actually seems to go together quite nicely on this particular model. So, as people may already know, like the Gel-Kinsei, it's got this very distinct look to it. Most people would know the Gel-Kinsei from its cushioning actually. And the way the cushion is set up is really interesting. So we've got foam at the front of the outsole, front of the midsole with a bit of gel in the sort of forefoot. But when we move to the back, we've got this hard plastic shank plate that runs from the midfoot all the way to the back. And there's no foam or anything underneath this. There's a tiny bit of foam just sandwiched between the shank plate and your foot. But then moving down from the shank plate itself, we've actually got raw gel that just sort of is glued to the plastic itself. And they're kind of like these prongs that stick out. That's like, I think like 4 sections or 6 sections to it. And the gel goes straight to the outsole as well. So I've heard a lot of people equate this to like the Asics version of a Nike Shox R4, which actually makes a lot of sense. It's aesthetically kind of a similar look, but yeah, that pretty much is like the main thing of the Gel-Kinsei, along with like the layered upper as well. And then if we move to the outsole, this is a pretty standard outsole for a Gel-Kinsei. We've got the hard plastic again. Now, in terms of what Affix actually did to change the shoe, most of the interesting stuff has actually just been done on the tongue section or the lacing system. So we've got this whole drawstring system. So we've got these thin wire laces, and they lead to this pull tab that you can sort of slide up and down to tighten the shoe. And the entire system is a complete loop, so you can't actually take it off. And to sort of add to this like slip-on quick lacing feature, we've actually got elastics, 2 elastics on the shoe itself. And on the top elastic, it actually says New You, which apparently is supposed to be new utility, which was the theme that Affix was going for with this particular collaboration. And one thing to mention, and I'm not sure if this is actually present on other Gel-Kinseis, but on the sort of slightly brighter layers of yellow, it's got this very subtle texture. It's almost like a scratched plastic texture. So I hope the B-roll can actually show it, but if you look really closely, it's got a lot of like linear lines and scratches, and I think it looks really interesting. I know it's like a subtle detail that you will never see from a distance, but it's really nice up close. And just like actually a lot of Kiko Kostadnov's collaborations, in terms of branding itself, there's nothing that would suggest that this is Affix, except for the insole on the left shoe. So we've actually got Affix written there, but then we've got Asics written on the right shoe. So I've always found that kind of interesting. Asics doesn't seem to be really leaning heavy on branding from the other side of the collaboration, but I think that's pretty interesting and quite nice actually. I don't always need to show off exactly what I'm wearing, but there you go. So that pretty much covers the main features of this particular shoe. In terms of sizing, I must say that they seem to fit a little bit small. So I personally bought these in a size 10, and I actually got my younger brother to try it on because he is a size 10. I always like to just check the sizing, and he says they do fit him, but it's a very snug fit. So my recommendation would be, if you like a really snug fitting shoe, I'd probably recommend going true to size. But if you just want a more regular fitting shoe, I would probably recommend going half a size up. So I'm natively a US 9.5. I bought these in a US 10 and they fit me great. Now in terms of comfort, to be honest, this really is kind of like an obsolete running model. When you try on the shoe, you'd expect to feel this gel, amazing like sort of cushioning and shock absorption. But honestly, you don't really feel much. Maybe because I haven't actually gone like running in this or like put some heavy strain on the gel, but at least just walking around, you really can't feel this gel compressing at all. And I think this has a lot to do with the fact that it's a hard piece of plastic in between your foot and the gel. The forefoot foam is pretty standard. I don't even think it's flight foam, which is like Asics kind of flagship foam these days. It's probably just some sort of standard EVA or something like that. So it's not terrible, it's just not exactly amazing. If we move up to the top, the layers don't get in the way of flexibility. It seems to be a pretty adequate feeling shoe. The mesh isn't exactly the widest mesh, but I wouldn't say this shoe is hot in the slightest. It just feels pretty standard on feet. So overall, I'd say for comfort that this is a pretty standard feeling retro running shoe. But let's be honest, Asics didn't bring this out for people to run in again, and that's where I get into my opinions on this particular shoe. And I had a really interesting conversation with one of the Asics employees when I was at the store, and they were telling me that Asics is actually becoming a little more aware about their old models actually gaining a cult following, and I can actually agree with this. There are actually there's a particular Facebook group called Asics Run AU, and it's specifically dedicated not to like Asics like Tiger, like Gel-Lyte 3s, Gel-Lyte 5s and things like that. It's specifically dedicated to retro performance running shoes, so like old like Gel Keanos, Gel Nimbuses, GT 2000s and things like that. It's all these old Asics running shoes that are being like sold off again for really close to the retail price back in the day, which is quite amazing in my opinion. And honestly, a lot of people are big fans of like the sort of large visible gel units. I personally am also one of these people. I love visible gel. So things like the Gel Quantum 360s. I used to have a pair of like Kayano 15s when I was younger, and I love those things. Sadly, I lost them. But honestly, I think Asics, what I'm trying to get at is Asics is becoming more aware of this, and this re-release of the Gel-Kinsei is sort of their like first step into kind of addressing this market. And to be honest, I think it's a really smart move. The Gel-Kinsei, I think, is a very interesting looking shoe, and with this Affix collaboration, the colorway is really interesting. It's got this very aggressive shape to it. It looks really nice on feet. It's pretty easy to put on actually with this whole lacing system. And overall, I'm just kind of like really excited by what Asics is doing with these retros of old running silhouettes. I'm kind of interested to see if they bring out any other specific running models from the past, but only time will tell. But as someone who never actually owned the Kinseis back in the day, I'm quite happy to own this particular shoe and this particular collaboration. So that is pretty much my opinions on this particular shoe, but I'd love to hear what you have to say. So with that, we've come to the end of another video. So I'd love to hear what you think about this Gel-Kinsei OG in the Affix collaboration, Stone Brown Kelp colorway. And actually, out of the Gel-Kinseis that are coming up, which is your favorite colorway? So for me personally, I'd probably say this is my favorite colorway. And the OG blue colorway, like the very signature like white, silver and blue Asics colorway, I actually think looks quite nice. But I'd love to hear what you have to say. Like the video if you like the video, dislike the video if you dislike the video, and if you're into more sneaker content and that sort of thing, consider subscribing to the channel. And I'll just leave it at that. Time for the on feet, and I'll catch you guys in another video.